folks. Daniel Martin, founder at KnowYourMarket.ai here. Today I want to run you through one of our first reports that was generated by the platform. It was for a client of our agency Aston Digital called Paperworld. Paperworld stores and sells old newspapers and magazines from across Australia and to some degree around the world. Their business model is about storing these newspapers from up to 200 years ago and then selling them to people online for more or less nostalgic purposes, things like anniversaries, birthdays, stuff like that. Or if you just happen to want a newspaper from the day that you were born, you could probably get it from Paperworld. Having been into their warehouse, it's quite an amazing thing. More papers in one place you will never see other than perhaps in a newspaper factory. It's quite amazing. So this report here we ran for them after being engaged for a little while to do a campaign, but only a very short period. The idea here was to use Know Your Market to expand upon what Paperworld could do, reviewing both their marketplace and their prior activities from some of their available marketing data. What you see here is a report generated from Know Your Market, so generated by AI using our platform. And I'm going to talk you through the different sections, what's included, how it came to those conclusions, and what you too as a business could expect to see yourself. Okay, so what we have here is a digital business strategy report, one of the templates that Know Your Market has built in for our client Paperworld. This was generated and delivered to the client around about, I think it was September gone this year. In this particular report, the AI platform, so Know Your Market, was handed Google data, so Google Analytics information going back June 23 through till basically September 25, was handed Google Ads data for the same, and was handed Meta, organic, and paid information for that same period of time. The platform was also handed the client's website URL, but not any branding data, as there was no brand strategy document available at the time. So everything that you see here was generated by research from the AI platform itself, understanding what Paperworld is, having read their website thoroughly, and having analyzed the market data or the marketing data that was available and supplied to the platform as well. This executive summary here was written entirely by the platform. We didn't write any of this ourselves. So none of this is handmade or handcrafted. This is in fact what KnowYourMarket.ai returned. And as you can see, it gave some overview here of how the business operates and an overview of how the marketing data reflected performance, and then suggested that there were some opportunities available as well. Again, all of this generated from the inputs that I provided a moment ago. No human intervention was applied to generate this. Scrolling further down, it then generated a business overview, understanding what Paperworld is, having looked at the website obviously. It has provided an overview not dissimilar to what I did just before, but again, this was done entirely by the platform itself. We didn't add to this. Going further on, it then had a look at the strategic landscape, so the broader market that's available. And it made some assessments based off information that was available to it. You'll also notice it then had a look at some of the brand positioning. Now, interestingly here, there was no branding information supplied, so there was no brand strategy. There was nothing more than the website and access to the social platforms to allow Know Your Market to develop this information. And as we found through both our own assessment and providing to the client, it was surprisingly accurate for what the client expected to see. And actually, the truth of the matter is, it was true. Again, all of that came down to its own research. Now, paid digital advertising performance. Obviously, this information is pulled directly from marketing data that was supplied. So it was raw data supplied from the platforms themselves. In this case, it was Meta. And you can see it's summed up here: impressions, links, conversions, click-through, and the total spend for that period of time. And then it made some observations as well, because there was a series of campaigns run within that time period. So it had assessed all of those campaigns and made some observations across that. It then also had a look at the audience and said, look, this is who's responding to your ads predominantly. Now, that wasn't necessarily a surprise for the client. What was interesting to us is Kim, Know Your Market, got all that correct. So again, the client read that and said, well, yep, that's what we expect. That's who we're going for. So a very, very accurate representation of reality there. Continue on, it then went into Facebook page performance. So this is organic. Again, those numbers are just straight taken from the data by reading. There's no intelligence behind that necessarily, but then the observations themselves were interesting. It's a little bit thin there because there actually isn't all that much to go off, but there was some interesting thoughts in there about, posts that use humor, storytelling, and customer stories generally gain the most interaction. A little bit general, yes, because that's almost always the case, but it was created from the real information, not based off some made up observation that might be general. Then moving into Google Ads performance, again, raw data that was brought directly off their marketing data that was fed in between 1 July 23 and 30 June 25. The observations, interestingly, there was one key point in this that the platform called out that we already knew, but it was interesting that it picked up on this. There was no conversion rate recorded, which then highlights the facts that you were using maximized clicks because you had no other choice. One of the observations that comes out later on is you should have been using conversion tracking. The client's website at the time didn't do conversion tracking, and that's why it's not there, but Kim called that out very early on. Then had a look at the audience analysis. Again, this is pulled out of the metric data that's supplied. On one hand, you might say, well, yeah, I could do that myself. This was done in about 30 seconds. The information was supplied to Kim. Kim reads that, makes its determinations, and generates the report. So yes, you could do this yourself, but this report format template is part of the IP that Aston Digital and subsequently Kim have developed and has within it. So this format is something we're acutely familiar with and is part of the IP. So if you were to make this yourself, you would have to go through and create this report template. It is what you get by being part of Know Your Market. It's pulled out here looking at meta link clicks by age and gender, breaking down the different sections. Again, we have some observations in there which are a little bit obvious, but also still important. Having a look at location, what came out here was exactly what the client expected to see, but again, it was correct. Website analytics. So we're talking here about GA4. Again, we had a number of GA4 reports fed in. Kim now integrates directly into GA4 and Google Search Console, so information can be pulled directly from those platforms now. At this particular moment in time, it was manually fed in via a file upload. That is no longer the case. It directly integrates to those platforms. It's had a look here and determined some high-level numbers. Obviously, that's real stuff, but it allows us to have a look at that in a really, really quick glance, and the same thing from a traffic source point of view. All of this layout allows businesses very quickly to make decisions, and obviously one of the big ones that came out with that particular graph that you see in front of you there is the client said, well, hang on a sec, that's 70% of our traffic that's coming from organic search. Are we not doing the right things in other places? As it happened, because of how they had GA4 broken down, the organic search and the Google Ads were being mixed together, which meant it looks larger than it really is, but it raised the point for discussion. And that's the whole point behind Know Your Market. Highlight what's important and decide where to move forward from there. You'll see observation here, organic search continues to be the dominant channel. Clearly from the report above, that's the case, but it was a point for debate because we then said, well, hang on, that's not right. But it raised the point and we could solve the problem. That is where Know Your Market thrives. On-site behavior. Some observations here, top visited page, checkout page, bounce rate. Nothing particularly exciting there because there wasn't anything to determine from the information that we had, but the system pulls that out and then shows that for discussion. Conversion and funnel analysis. So at this juncture, what we have is the system has given us the analysis. So it said, okay, here's what all the metrics summed up look like. So that's essentially the report, if you will. The strategic bit is about to come because as part of our querying mechanism, Kim is told, show us the numbers, then tell us what you think we should do next, at a high level, obviously. So what you're seeing here is, what do you think we should do next? And one of the punchlines here was, the site performs well with first-time buyers driven by campaign traffic or organic search. But bang, 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 bang. This represents a critical weakness in customer lifetime value and second order conversion potential. All right, we've got something serious to work with here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I will stress, we did not make this up. This is our AI platform generating all of that knowledge and spitting it out immediately in front of our client. Going further down, we now have some direct strategic recommendations. Again, this was made completely by Kim. We didn't do any of it manually. Paid strategy. Introduce copy/creative rotation every 6 weeks to combat ad fatigue. Might sound obvious, but for a business that wasn't doing it, not so obvious. Include some lookalikes. Rebuild Google Ads. Gift intent keywords. It had all the knowledge, so it knew where to go to find some quick wins. Funnel improvements. It's got some suggestions there. Retention and email, what you should be doing with that. Interestingly, we had already spoken to the client about automated flows. They didn't exist. Again, we didn't tell Kim to put it in there. It did it itself. This stuff is automatically generated, and the speed at which it does it from the data that it's pulling from will blow your mind. Organic growth, again, all generated by the platform. Now, because, of course, Kim is part of the Aston Digital Group, in this particular report, we asked Kim to include what the services roadmap might be. So what you're looking at here is, as an agency, we are saying, okay, here is what we're suggesting that should be done henceforth. Again, this was not done by us. This was our AI tool generating this. And realistically speaking, as with any roadmap from an agency point of view, it more or less is about sparking the discussion versus actually having an outline of what you're going to do going forward. But this laid out a roadmap for our client to say, okay, well, if I'm going to work with you guys further, here is what we could potentially do. Again, we didn't make this up. All AI. Kim did the whole lot. And a nice pretty page at the end. We did do that part. That is not AI generated. That's part of the template. And of course, if you were to create your own, you wouldn't necessarily have that at the end because you're doing it for your internal purposes. This was being used as an agency tool. What I'd like you to take away from today's overview of this report is the fact that all of this insight and all of this analysis was done by an AI tool set based off reams and reams of data that it consumed in seconds and generated an output here that really rivals anything a human could do over the course of days and weeks, let alone seconds. So the speed at which this was generated and the caliber of the information, you cannot beat this as a human. And that's not to say humans are bad. AI is a tool set that will far surpass the speed at which humans can operate. We need to use it as a tool. And that is where Kim comes into play. This depth and quality of information and caliber of layout, it is just something that a human would take so much longer to do. Yet Kim can do it and draw upon hundreds of thousands of data points in just a second. To me, it's exciting. To me, frankly, it's a bit amazing. But to me, it's also the operating system for modern marketing. This allows us to speed up the rate at which we do things. It's not just about, oh, here's some fancy reports, I'll go show my boss. I mean, yeah, that's great. But it's about saying, I can now make decisions so much faster than I did before. I can now consider new avenues so much faster than I did before because Kim allows me to pull that information in from a variety of different sources. We have things coming down the pipeline here that we haven't told people about yet that'll blow your mind. We can plug into websites in ways that you couldn't imagine previously. And you can aggregate all of that data in one place and say to Kim, hey, read it all and tell me what I should do next. And it will do it so quickly, and you'll end up with a report that's of this caliber, and you can move forward. Do that in half an hour. It would normally take you 3 weeks to generate this stuff. It is a game changer. And as you can probably tell from my level of enthusiasm, I'm excited by it. I genuinely hope that others are as well. I know that our founding advisory team are equally excited. That's why they are part of the founding advisory team. And frankly, I think it's great that we get to have those people on board. I'm super keen to continue working with them because they are experts and they love what we're doing here. I think you will too. At the time of recording this, this platform is not open to the public. Kim is in development, and we are working with, as I said before, the founding members to make it as good as it possibly can be. But when the time comes, and it will, I hope that you, along with everyone else in the marketing industry, can get behind Kim and really extract the value that's there, because this thing will change the way that modern marketing operates.